The Guardian, keeping you safe on Channel 5.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight with the latest judgment from the Supreme Court about abortion. It is hard to find anyone who likes it. The court, by the narrowest margin, 5-4, has decided that a woman's constitutional right to have an abortion, as the court ruled in Roe versus Wade 19 years ago, should still be guaranteed. But it also decided in the case of Pennsylvania's law that certain restrictions, and Pennsylvania's are extensive, do not place an undue burden on a woman who wishes to exercise that constitutional right. We begin at the court. Here's Tim O'Brien.
The Supreme Court appeared under siege this morning by both sides in the explosive abortion debate. While inside, the justices announced conflicting and fragmented decisions, producing a compromise that appears to have satisfied no one. The court upheld key parts of a Pennsylvania law restricting abortion, that doctors inform women of the risks and alternatives to abortion, that women then wait at least 24 hours before getting one, that minors get permission from a parent or a judge. But the court rejected a provision requiring married women to notify their husbands and proclaimed its new undue burden test that will govern future review of abortion laws. 3 justices, O'Connor, Kennedy, and Souter, all appointed by anti-abortion presidents, agreed states have sweeping power to regulate abortion, but no authority to place a substantial obstacle in the path of a woman seeking an abortion, what the justices defined as an undue burden. 2 other justices, Blackmun and Stevens, would have gone further, rejecting the Pennsylvania law in its entirety. The 5 together provided a majority to reaffirm the central right to abortion recognized in Roe v. Wade. David Souter, a Bush appointee, took the unusual step of summarizing his views from the bench, that to overrule Roe now would subvert the court's authority. President Bush's other appointee, Clarence Thomas, joined with Justices Rehnquist, White, and Scalia in a blistering dissent saying Roe versus Wade should be overruled. Scalia called the court's new undue burden test standardless, a verbal shell game that leaves everyone guessing how far states may go to limit abortion. But the court did make clear abortion may not be banned outright, which would seem to doom new laws in Louisiana, Utah, and Guam that prohibit most abortions. The 2 sides were worlds apart, although in a sense, as Justice Harry Blackmun put it, the difference between them is small, only a single vote. And Blackmun, the author of Roe versus Wade, added a personal note. I'm 83 years old and cannot remain on the court forever. He suggested the future of abortion could turn on the next election and how the Senate acts in confirming his successor. Tim O'Brien, ABC News at the Supreme Court. We move on to those who've been publicly opposing abortion. They've been focusing their public activities recently in Milwaukee. Neither they nor the abortion rights advocates who oppose them were pleased with today's decision. ABC's Tom Foreman on how the debate went today in Milwaukee and elsewhere.
Over the past 3 weeks, more than 400 protesters have been arrested here in fighting over abortion rights. And as the decision came down, the people who have been trying to close down abortion clinics in Milwaukee said they are not inclined to ease their offensive.
Ideally, we would have liked Roe v. Wade to have been fully overturned, but the Supreme Court justices obviously don't have enough backbone to do that right now.
In Washington, the head of Operation Rescue, Randall Terry.
The blood of 30 million children is already crying out to Almighty God for vengeance. And today, 3 Reagan-Bush appointees stabbed the pro-life movement in the back and affirmed the bloodshed.
Hello, the decision came down this morning.
At the same time, those in favor of abortion rights said today's decision was a clear loss. They believe they must now attack primarily from the political front to keep other states from putting abortion restrictions in place.
Every pro-choice woman in every state must fight for her life, literally, by going to the ballot box and voting for pro-choice legislators, both on the federal and on the state level.
Those who support abortion rights say their challenge now is to produce enough candidates who feel the same way to give voters a choice. For the other side, the job is clear enough to make sure none of those candidates get elected. Tom Foreman, ABC News, Milwaukee.
Back to Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania abortion law has actually never been enforced. The moment Governor Casey signed it 2.5 years ago, it was challenged in court and thus put on hold. Now that the Supreme Court has ruled, a great deal will change. ABC's Carol Simpson is in Pennsylvania tonight.
In small towns scattered throughout the Lehigh Valley of Pennsylvania, today's decision by the Supreme Court has confirmed the fears of those who support abortion rights.
The green light is being given for making it harder and harder for women to have access to abortion, possibly by regulations that increase costs, increase bureaucratic hoops.
The Allentown Women's Center is one of several abortion clinics which challenged Pennsylvania's restrictive abortion law. It performs about 50 abortions a week, and a third of the patients are teenaged girls. This 21-year-old got an abortion when she was 17. She said she would have been afraid to tell her mother or a judge that she wanted an abortion and would probably have had the baby and ended up on welfare.
It would have been very difficult, and I probably would not have gone back to school. That's probably a definite. I wouldn't be in college right now, and I wouldn't be making plans for the future.
How much do you think? Abortion rights activists are also worried about provisions requiring doctors to give patients detailed explanations of the risks and alternatives to abortion, and the 24-hour waiting period that could require the expense and inconvenience of 2 trips or an overnight stay.
This places a burden on rural women that is heavier than the burden it places on urban women, because rural women often travel as much as 1.5 to 3 hours to get their services in Pennsylvania.
Abortion rights advocates say, if necessary, they will help women travel to neighboring states to get abortions, a way to avoid restrictions the Supreme Court did not find burdensome, but that many women in Pennsylvania may. Carol Simpson, ABC News, Allentown, Pennsylvania.
In a moment, today's abortion decision in the presidential campaign. And in the other news today, a dying man is being kept alive with a new liver transplanted from a baboon. And the United Nations is sending more troops to Sarajevo to open up that airport.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by the Discover Car. Sold!
Let's say you bought a painting. Let's say Van Gogh's sunflowers. Let's say you used the Discover card. You'd have a little money coming back, because with the Discover card, every single charge earns an annual cashback bonus.
Nice.
It pays to Discover, the card that pays you back.
Listen, athlete's foot fungus grows beneath the surface of your skin. To cure it, you've got to get down to the root of the problem. You need Micatin.
Micatin penetrates the surface of your skin with miconazole to cure athlete's foot where it grows. Step up to the mic. Micatin.
Gas pressure means pain and bloating. And the way doctors see it, your best choice for relief is Mylanta gas. It has the best medicine for gas.
As Tim O'Brien noted from the Supreme Court earlier, Justice Blackmun said he fears, his sentiments, that the court may decide to overturn Roe v. Wade depending on who replaces Justice Blackmun on the court. At 83, he is the oldest justice, which places the selection of his replacement, whenever it comes, squarely in the middle of this political campaign. ABC's Britt Hume reports on what the political candidates had to say today.
His support for law enforcement today by helping dedicate a new drug enforcement office in New York, while his political advisors privately hoped the Supreme Court would not overturn Roe v. Wade. The president has been faithfully anti-abortion since his conversion to that view when he became Ronald Reagan's running mate. But politically, the last thing he needed was to have Roe v. Wade reversed, since it would have galvanized the abortion rights forces against him, and polls show a majority of the people support abortion. Mr. Bush did not say anything about the decision, instead issuing a brief written statement saying he was, quote, pleased that what he called Pennsylvania's reasonable restrictions had been upheld. His Democratic opponent, meanwhile, went before a room full of women to portray the decision as a dire setback for the abortion rights movement. Clinton, of course, would be helped politically by a decision that fired up the abortion rights movement, whose cause he supports.
The constitutional right to choose is hanging by a thread. That we are only one justice away from returning to the painful past before Roe v. Wade.
Clinton glossed over the fact that a 5-justice majority, including Bush appointee David Souter, had made clear they are not ready to overturn Roe v. Wade.
The details are not nearly as important as the fact that 4 people came out forthrightly for repealing Roe v. Wade and that Justice Blackmun sent us a clear signal that only the next election can preserve it.
In Dallas, meanwhile, Perot headquarters issued a statement in his name saying, "I respect and obey the laws as interpreted by the Supreme Court," but he said he's personally pro-choice. In a way, Perot's terse two-sentence statement best reflects the political impact of the court's decision. It's not nearly as big a development as the Bush camp had feared and the Clinton camp had hoped. Rick Hume, ABC News, New York.
In the presidential stakes today, another glimpse of where the candidates stand in the polls 4 months before the election. Statistically, a dead heat. Our ABC News Washington Post survey, completed only yesterday, shows Governor Clinton is actually in front with 33% of the likely voters. Ross Perot second with 30, President Bush with 29. Since the margin of error you can see there is plus or minus 3.5%, that is easily a tie. It does represent a gain of 7 points for Governor Clinton from the beginning of the month and a drop of 8 points for Mr. Perot. There are 2 programs about Ross Perot on ABC tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, 9 Central. An hour on some of the events in his life, which may help us get a better handle on how he might do as president if he's elected. And then right after your late local news, an electronic town meeting during which people in 10 cities will have a chance to examine him live on whatever concerns them. I hope you'll join us for both of them. A 35-year-old man is recovering tonight in a Pittsburgh hospital after making medical history. The unidentified patient has become the first human ever to receive a liver transplanted from a baboon. Without the transplant, he'd been given less than a month to live. Here's ABC's George Strait.
Doctors who transplanted the baboon's liver acknowledge the operation was both a radical experiment and a desperate attempt to save the dying patient's life.
He's awake, he's able to respond to simple commands, and the graft, the liver, seems to be functioning.
The patient didn't get a human liver because he has hepatitis, and the virus that causes that disease would infect the new liver. Doctors told the patient that shouldn't be a problem here because they believe the human hepatitis virus will not infect a baboon's liver.
It became clear that he, after informed consent, was very interested in proceeding.
The last person known to receive an animal organ was baby Faye. 8 years ago, this infant received a baboon heart at the Loma Linda Medical Center in California. It was rejected after 3 weeks, and she died. Doctors are more optimistic this time because the patient is being given a new, more powerful anti-rejection drug called FK506. Doctors say they are experimenting with animal organs because there are not enough human organs to go around.
The shortage of human organs has become catastrophic.
An average of 1 patient a day dies because there aren't enough human livers available for transplant. Surgeons say the odds are small that the animal transplant will work. That it is being tried at all shows just how desperate doctors and patients are to find a solution to the organ shortage problem. George Strait, ABC News, Washington.
We'll have more news in just a moment.
Draw from the facts. There's a way to maintain regularity without drugs. It starts here. A high-fiber diet, which can include Kellogg's All-Bran, an excellent source of wheat bran fiber, may help you stay regular, drug-free. And there's a lot to be said for that, naturally. A high-fiber diet and Kellogg's All-Bran for drug-free regularity.
Who are you going to call the most this month?
My dad in New York.
My stockbroker.
My 7-year-old grandson who is a genius. With Sprint's new program, The Most, you'll automatically save on whoever you call the most each month.
My sister Aura.
And with The Most, you'll also save every time you call one of the millions of other Sprint customers.
My brother Bubba in Sanford.
I call my mother in London.
My mother-in-law.
I think I better leave that one alone.
Imagine a pillowy cushion of softness with every step you take. Dr. Scholl's 2-layer air pillow insoles. 1 layer for shock, 1 for comfort. Dr. Scholl's. You'll feel better when the doctor is in.
It could start in your office, in your home, over lunch. But now, wherever heartburn starts, this is where it ends. Introducing new Maalox Heartburn Relief Formula. No ordinary antacid works like this one to put out heartburn.
Some of the economic news today: there's been a slump in the housing industry. Sales of new homes went down in May for the fourth month in a row, 5.6%. Most economists had been expecting home sales to go up. And there are going to be more layoffs in the huge insurance industry. Aetna says it is going to eliminate nearly 5,000 jobs by the end of next year. That's on top of the 3,000 people Aetna laid off last year. Well, there are going to be a lot of insurance claims in California after yesterday's 2 earthquakes. There have been at least $16 million in damage so far. 1 person is dead. More than 350 people have been hurt, and the after effects are still being felt. Here's ABC's Brian Rooney.
The aftershocks have been almost continuous in the last day and a half. Seismologists have recorded as many as 1,000 of them in the area around yesterday's big quake just north of the San Andreas Fault. Scientists say this shift in the desert crust was one of a series of big quakes in Southern California that tells them major events could be coming.
I think wake-up call is a very excellent term here. We're in an active time period.
The southern area of the San Andreas Fault is considered the most dangerous because it has been 300 years since its last really major shakeup.
Anytime there's an earthquake that close to the San Andreas Fault, there is the concern that it might trigger a larger event on the San Andreas.
This kind of talk does not get a big reaction from Southern Californians.
Living here all my life, I just never get too upset about earthquakes because it's just part of living out here, and you can't worry about it.
It's like a car accident. You just have to have insurance and be prepared if it happens, because in LA there's a good probability that it will.
For now, according to history, the probability is dropping as time passes, but it may be a week before the greatest danger has passed. Brian Rooney, ABC News, Los Angeles.
On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrials gained more than 37 points to close at 33.19. The trading was moderate. In a moment, we'll have some stunning pictures from Sarajevo of what one family does to stay alive.
Looks great. But come on, I mean, you know, you could have gotten yourself another BMW or a Lexus.
I suppose. But why? This had everything I wanted. Power, great handling, ABS,
yeah, but
airbag, leather, everything. I couldn't see spending $10,000, $20,000 more for what?
Who makes it?
Pontiac. It's the new Bonneville.
Nice.
An authentic deli-style sandwich.
Hey, you want the Sal's Deli?
No.
Used to come from a deli.
Sal sure knows how to make a sandwich.
Well, now they come from Oscar Mayer.
Didn't come from Sal's.
Oscar Mayer deli thin bran slices. Slow-cooked ham and oven-roasted turkey breast.
Ah, Morton's.
Sliced razor thin. For a taste...
Dad, it's Oscar Mayer.
It's unmistakably Oscar Mayer.
They opened a deli?
Oscar Mayer deli thin. Nothing but the best.
To get rid of her gray, my wife can spend 40 minutes. But I discovered this 5-minute hair coloring.
The revolutionary discovery called Just for Men from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men and in 5 minutes shampoo out.
Gray is blended away. The look of my natural color is back in 5 minutes. That was me, and it won't fade or wash out.
My hair takes forever, but you look great in just 5 minutes.
The look of your natural color in just 5 minutes with Just for Men.
To survive out here, you need a rifle, a friend like Elvis here, and of course, Domino's Pizza.
It's our 99-cent carry-out special. With any regular price pizza, get a one-topping medium for 99 cents.
Nobody knows like Domino's, right, Elvis?
How you like pizza at home?
Do you get diarrhea, too?
Yes, I do get diarrhea. And what I take is Kaopectate. I have no time to be sick. Kaopectate stops the symptoms fast. It gets rid of the diarrhea. Kaopectate works every time.
Overseas, the United Nations has tried again to force Serbian militiamen to end their siege of Sarajevo. On Friday, the Security Council gave the Serbians an ultimatum: give up control of the city's airport or the UN indicated it may use force. Today, the Security Council voted to send in more United Nations troops. The Serbians may finally be getting the message. Here's ABC's John McWethy.
The small contingent of United Nations soldiers raised the UN flag at Sarajevo Airport as the last Serbian troops and tanks left the area. The top UN official, General Louis Mackenzie, was extremely cautious.
Please let me stress that the United Nations now has control of the airport. It does not have the security of the airport.
Mackenzie commands only 34 peacekeepers at the airport who could do nothing to hold it if the Serbs decide to take it back. At the UN today, the Security Council moved quickly to fortify today's gain, voting to send 1,100 Canadian troops to the airport so an airlift of food and medicine could begin. But because the hills surrounding the airport continue to bristle with Serbian artillery, even reinforcements will not keep the airport open if the ceasefire does not hold. It was with that in mind that the president of the Security Council threatened tougher steps.
You should not forget in the resolution, there is a passage which said that we are not exclude other measures if the ceasefire is not respected.
The other means that he is referring to represents a step no one wants to take, sending in thousands of combat troops and scores of bombers to silence the guns in the hills. It is hoped that just the threat of such force will be enough. John McWethy, ABC News, the State Department.
For so many people in Sarajevo, survival has become very much a matter of chance. One of our ABC camera crews has just come out of the city, bringing with them an astonishing record of what one family must do every day to stay out of the line of fire. Here's ABC's Mike Lee.
This is the Lubavitch family of Sarajevo. Father Emir, mother Sabaheta, daughters Yashenka and Layla. They live from hour to hour in fear of the war outside their second-floor apartment. Only a few hundred yards away are the buildings where Serbian fighters are hiding. They have a clear shot at the apartment. The family has already had one near miss, which left a bullet hole in the window. When Amir, an accountant, leaves for work each day, everyone tries to be cheerful, but just getting through the day will be an ordeal for each of them. Amir joins others in the dangerous journey along streets where people stay close to the walls for protection. Handmade signs warn of snipers. Cars speed through intersections. Most pedestrians run for their lives. Amir is out of shape, but is too afraid to slow down. Mothers who would normally hold their children's hands instead send them alone across streets because one person makes less of a target. Amir made it to his office greeted by colleagues, Serbs, Croats, and Muslims like himself, all survivors of a death-defying commute. Meanwhile, back home, Sabaheta has to leave her children alone while she draws water from a basement pipe. The kids are often on their own for hours. We haven't been to school in months, says 10-year-old Layla. 8-year-old Yashenka says she misses milk and sweets. In the evening, they have an important family meeting. The girls are upset that Dad was away for so long today. He could not get home during a mortar attack. Where do we go when the shells fall, says Layla. They all agree to rendezvous at a neighbor's apartment next time they are separated by the war. Mike Lee, ABC News, Belgrade.
Still overseas, the Algerian head of state, Mohamed Boudiaf, has been assassinated. He was in the middle of a speech. The camera was actually pointed at the audience when somebody shot him in the back with a machine gun. Mr. Boudiaf had been in charge of the ruling military council since the military staged a coup in Algeria in January. At a meeting of the International Whaling Commission today, environmentalists were demonstrating against Norway. The Prime Minister of Norway has announced that his country is going to ignore a worldwide moratorium on whaling, and Norway is going to begin to hunt whales again. In a moment, why the Navy wants to expel this man from the service.
It's nothing serious. It only wakes me up a couple of times a week. It really doesn't affect me. I avoid foods that are fried or spicy. I can deal with it. I just take antacids.
If you have frequent heartburn symptoms like acid indigestion or burning in the chest, talk to your doctor. These may be signs of a serious medical problem. Your doctor has treatment plans that can help.
It's only a heartburn. I should learn to live with it. Right?
Frequent heartburn. Isn't it time you talk to your doctor?
Before you freeze, remember this rule of thumb. Get Ziploc brand freezer bags with the gripper zipper. Tough, tiny teeth you can feel gripping, so you know freshness is locked in, freezer burns out. Do like me. Protect your ears. There's only one Ziploc.
I try to ignore my sensitive teeth, but they hurt.
Don't ignore your sensitive teeth. Sensodyne helps stop the pain that can make you stop brushing. Could lead even to tooth loss.
Thanks, Sensodyne.
Sensodyne helps stop the pain and the domino effect.
Your rugged routine, day after day. It's even harder when athlete's foot routinely comes back. Get prescription strength Lotrimin AF. It kills all causes of athlete's foot. Lotrimin AF, the finish line for athlete's foot.
Nighttime, one of the worst times for pain. Minor arthritis pain, muscle aches, pain that seems to go on. That's why you need Ultra Strength Bengay. With more pain relievers than we've ever had, you can say goodnight to your pain with Ultra Strength Bengay.
Peter Jennings reporting, Who is Ross Perot? Tonight at 10, 9 Central.
They ain't seen nothing yet.
Then meet Perot in a national town meeting live.
Finally from us this evening, the case against Keith Meinhold. He's the Navy petty officer who told us publicly last month that he is gay. The Pentagon doesn't allow homosexuals to serve in the military, so within minutes of his announcement, the Navy began discharge proceedings. ABC's Ken Kashiwahara on where the case stands.
Petty Officer Keith Meinhold admitted he felt a little nervous today as he prepared to face a Navy Administrative Board, which will decide whether to kick him out of the military. At a hearing, Navy prosecutors produced only one piece of evidence against Meinhold, a statement he made on this broadcast 6 weeks ago.
Yes, I am in fact gay.
Prosecutors said the case is simple. The Pentagon bans homosexuals from military service. But Meinhold's attorneys argued that simply admitting homosexuality does not violate military rules, which specifically prohibit homosexual conduct.
Keith has made no admission of conduct, and in every other way he's been an outstanding sailor. And so we say that the government hasn't presented sufficient evidence upon which to end that outstanding career.
Meinhold is a 12-year Navy veteran and airborne sonar instructor with a perfect record. He says he is risking his career to help change the military's policy by showing that gays can serve effectively and that the ban discriminates against homosexuals.
I'm supposed to be out there fighting for American values to retain those, and the Navy is just absolutely violating those, the civil rights of Americans.
4 of Meinhold's Navy colleagues testified on his behalf today. One said he would have no problem serving in combat with Meinhold. Others said his homosexuality has had no effect on his duties or theirs.
Petty Officer Meinhold was one of the best anti-submarine warfare operator instructors that I had seen in my naval career.
If he loses in Navy court, Meinhold says he will take his case to federal court. In the meantime, he marched with the American Legion in yesterday's annual Gay Freedom Day parade to emphasize that he will continue to fight for gay rights in the military. Ken Kashiwahara, ABC News, San Francisco.
And that's our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. I hope you'll join us a little later for our report on Ross Perot. See you then. Good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Monday.
You can take them hides.
You live by the laws of nature.
But you ain't taking me.
And nothing else.
The real story of Claude Dallas on FBI, The Untold Stories. Dan.
You're under arrest, police officer.
A father must choose between the streets and his family.
We don't have time for games.
American detective followed by MacGyver.
Bonjour. Today we'll be cooking a fabulously simple dish, lamb couscous in a saffron tamarind sauce en croûte.
Easy for her to say. Even easier is just to come to Perkins for our special summer menu filled with waffles, salads, pitas, and skewers. So come on in for Perkins' summer menu, because the easiest way to cook with imagination...
Simple, no?
...is to let us do it for you.
Now for the entree.
Listen, Coca-Cola's putting together the biggest music event of the summer with the hottest acts in the business. Elton John, Natalie Cole, Eric Clapton.
5 minutes to the start.
In Excess, Randy Travis, and more. And you can win collector's edition CDs and cassettes with these great artists. And it's all free, but there's only one place you can get them. Right here.
This summer, there's music in the real thing. You could win one of 20 million prizes in specially marked packages of Coca-Cola products.